What's going on, everybody? Let me turn this logo off. What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in to the second episode of season 3. News on my end. We have Eric Packard joining us today. This is his second time on the show. I'm going to go over his bio in just a second. It's embarrassing. I've still got it written here on the iPad. I should know it by heart by now. But other stuff is the kayak mothershipping business is in full go. So if you're interested in that, there will be booking opportunities coming up soon, a lot more promotional material coming out. So stay tuned on that. That's still happening. There's some kind of infrastructure things that I got to work out before I can go fully launch, but the goal is still the spring of this year. Let me bring in Mr. Packard here. Hey, Eric, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing? Everything's good over here.
Cool. So, Eric, this is the second time back. Eric is the newest commissioner to the Maryland Sports Fisheries Advisory Commission. He's representing the tidal and non-tidal recreation anglers in Southern Maryland. He's also a contributing writer to Fish Talk magazine. If you've done a good bit of reading of Fish Talk magazine, I promise you've read one of his articles. Eric is also a pro staff at Patuxent Adventure Center in Solomons, Maryland. He's a self-taught artist. In fact, if I lean one of these directions or the other, Eric, you recognize that?
Sure do.
Yeah. So the first time Eric was on my show, he brought that along as a gift. I think I provided him with a hat. Did I give you a hat at the time?
Yeah, no, not that time, but he gave me one later.
Yeah, your art was way cooler. I felt like, I brought a lame gift to a Christmas party.
It's all good.
But he's a self-taught artist. He does oil paintings, ink, pencil drawings, oil pastels. And Eric also retired in 2016. He lives in Southern Maryland. I've pretty much picked him up at his house to go fishing before. But this guy fishes more than 250 days a year. And I'll say a couple of things about Eric before we get started. Two things. I mean, A, I'm jealous that he gets to be on the water as much as he is. But if you've ever heard me in any of my videos say wet lines, it's because of this guy that inspired that. Because everyone's always like, tight lines. And like, I'm not big on cliches, but so I was like, I'm going to come up with something new. And I watched this guy fish, and you'll never see someone with his lure in the water, with his line in the water, as much as Eric Packard. When this dude is fishing, he is going, and his line is in the water all the time. Your line can't get tight if it's not wet. So how you doing, Eric?
Doing good. Yourself?
I'm doing really well. You've been on this show before.
Yep.
What you been up to in the past year?
Well, one thing I've done is I'm actually now sit on the Mallows Bay. I'm a recreational. I represent the recreational fishermen and for NOAA, the sanctuary. Mallows Bay became a sanctuary, so now I sit on that committee as well. So that's pretty cool.
Isn't Mallows Bay where all the shipwrecks are?
Yeah, it's a sanctuary for the shipwrecks. There's over 125 World War I boats there. There's a big ferry, the last ferry that used to go across over where the Chesapeake Bridge and Tunnel System is. It's there as well. I think it might be a PT boat there. Some other boats there. The sanctuary is pretty big. It goes all the way across to the Virginia side. And we've had one meeting. Our second meeting is coming up in February. We'll see how that goes. This should be a lot of fun. But I'll see what I can do for the recreational fishermen there. That's why I sit on the other committee as well, representing recreational fishermen too, which is fun. It's an honor to do that, to get appointed and sit on those and get insight on what's happening with respect to protecting the fisheries, the fish in the fisheries and things like that. So it's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun.
So tell me what, I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but like the Maryland Sports Fisheries Advisory Commission, what's that all about?
Well, that committee is, we're advisory to the DNR. We actually do some of the footwork for them. They'll come up with ideas, or we'll come up with an idea, and then we'll get together like a subcommittee, work on a project, or make a recommendation to the state. We recommend that to the secretary of the DNR and the other folks there, and then they can take those and decide if they're going to implement those or not. And everything from invasive species to like the rockfish, the striped bass matters, things like that. It's a pretty fun committee. And like I said, myself, I think Dave Sikorsky are the two that represent the recreational fishermen. And then you have commercial fishermen, you have charter fishermen, and oyster people that all sit on this committee. And collaboratively, we get together and make recommendations and talk to the DNR.
So I don't know if you have to be tight-lipped on this, but are you able to talk about any of your recommendations so far? Look at me. I'm already going off script.
No, there's not much actually coming up. I'd rather not, because we don't want to talk about something that's not going to be put in place or anything like that. So, okay.
Yeah, no problem, man. So I've already said you fish more than anybody that I know.
Yeah, but unfortunately last year, I only fished 245 because of COVID.
Okay, but you got Walleye Pete here in the chat already saying, I believe no human in this country wets more line. And this dude's on his boat almost that many days a year. And he's saying that. So that just basically proves the point, and makes this question more valid. Do you ever sit there and think, man, I'm sick of fishing, or I'm tired of this?
Why? Why would I do that?
No, I've never fished 250 days a year. I've never been in that position.
Challenge. Sometimes I'll get out there. Let's say I'm getting ready to go out, grab a kayak, or go on a boat with somebody. I'll just grab one rod, one lure, see if I can make it happen.
What are you trying to start a YouTube channel? One rod, one reel.
Anyway, just trying to challenge yourself to do things, because we're going to talk about pickerel fishing later. But to jump the gun here, let's think you're fishing for pickerel in a tributary, mill pond, or like St. Mary's Lake over here. So now I have 3 different fisheries that hold the same fish, but believe it or not, those fish do not eat the same in each fishery. They react differently. There are different depths, different times of year, water clarity, tidal, if it's tidal water or not. So that all plays into it. So that's the challenge. In fact, I'm in a tournament right now with CCA. It's a pickerel tournament. I think there's 73 people signed up, and that tournament goes through February 28th. So there's still a chance for people to get into it and win this thing. I'm in 5th place right now. I haven't fished in about 2 weeks for pickerel. I've been helping with the DNR tagging rockfish, and then with some other things going on, so starting tomorrow, I'll get back at it and start hitting those. I am going to try fishing some of the mill ponds over in Delaware as well. I think some of the bigger fish are over there. But anyway, to your question is, no, I don't get bored with it. I challenge myself in certain things. In fact, I did a little video. It's up on my YouTube site. I grabbed an old Mitchell 300 reel on a fiberglass rod. Both of them are from the the mid 70s to the early 80s, and then took a Mepps spinner. Only took Mepps spinners with me, and went out and put my waders on. Went wade fishing to see what I can catch off of it. Of course, old school stuff still works. It worked back then. It can work today.
Man, I'm convinced, and I'm going to do it one of these years when I'm lucky enough to retire as young as you did. I'm going to take a kitchen spoon and tie a swivel to the handle of it, and on the tip of it, I'm going to put a treble hook.
But isn't
and
that?
I'll bet you in like November through March, if I drop that thing in 30 feet of water when there's stripers around, I promise you I'll hook up.
Hey, well, original spoon was developed that way, I believe, up in Wisconsin.
Yeah, man.
He used the spoon, guy did, tied it on there, and caused a flash, and it worked.
Right. There's probably a reason why it's called a spoon, and I'm probably gonna make some YouTube episode about it, and then people are gonna be like, "Man, I've done that 100 times," I'm gonna think I retired for this.
Yeah, fish.
So 245 days this year. You're slowing down.
50, but I was 11 days. I was on a cruise for 11 days down in Central America, so you got to count that in as being on the water.
Yeah. Okay. Did you fish down there?
No, I was on a cruise.
You don't count that then. You don't.
Big ass boat, man. You can't do it. Anyway,
you don't count that. So of the whatever 240, basically 200 days more than me. Of those days, what was your fish of the year this last year, man?
Oh, all of them actually. If I'm out there catching, I'm catching. But I think this year there were several things. I got a chance to do some shark fishing. I probably won't do it again, but shark fishing's fun. If you're the right place, went out to Assateague, caught some shark out there. Biggest one I think was 6 foot. Caught a nice redfish, 45-inch redfish this year, which is a nice fish. I was out at Mallows Bay fishing for largemouth bass, catching a ton of blue cats on chatterbaits. That was fun doing that. And then
Fun.
cutlass fish. You ever catch a cutlass fish?
Never.
Fish? Yeah, they're in the bay. Some of the tribs as well. I catch them over here in Mallows Bay or Mill Creek, and I catch them over at off of Piney Point.
What do they look like?
It's a cutlass fish. It's long. It's silver. I don't think they have scales. They really don't have scales. They're in Asia. I think Southeast Asia. It's kind of a delicacy. They fish for them down there, but it's becoming a thing in Virginia. So people are catching them and taking them home and eating them. I've never eaten one. They're supposed to be good fish though, but they're fun to catch. They're kind of difficult to catch at times. Usually, I'm catching them when I'm fishing for speckled trout.
Nice.
Place like that. Yep.
Go ahead.
I go out for speckled trout this year.
What's that?
Didn't you and I go out for speckled
Yeah,
trout?
we did. We had a pretty good day over on at Sharp's Light.
Yep. That was
We
fun.
did. Yeah, that was fun. I can't wait. I mean, like I was telling somebody else the other day. I was like, I don't know what kind of horrendous deeds I'd do if it meant that we'd get an early spring. But like having said that, you're tagging rockfish for the DNR. I hear off of like PLO, people are tearing it up right now.
Down there they are. I'm not tagging there. We're tagging elsewhere. We're tagging out in the ocean.
Okay.
A little bit different scenario there, but the fish we're tagging are coming down. They're going to come back up into the bay if they're not already there. So we'll see.
Yeah, I made the big mistake of telling my boat mechanic. I dropped the boat off. I'm not going to say anybody's name because I don't want to. I like these people, but I made the big mistake on December 12th of dropping the boat off just to get some basic stuff done and saying, "No rush, man." Never ever say that to a boat mechanic. Never say no rush.
But you can fish, all year long as long as the ice isn't out there. As long as there's hard water.
Well, I had just broken my rib fishing down off of Janes Island. So I knew I was going to be laid up for a bit. But what's that?
How did you do that? You just tore up your shin on your other boat.
Man, it's been a rough last 6 months, bro. I was trailing the boat out at Janes Island State Park and trying to do it quickly because someone was waiting for me, and also trying to stay somewhat dry. So I put both of my feet up on the tongue of the trailer, and my feet were a little wet, and they both slipped off at the same time, and the hitch caught me right underneath the ribs with all my body weight.
Yeah, bummer.
But I slept in a tent that night, woke up and fished the next day, all day.
That's fine.
But yeah, we brought you on here to talk pickerel, man. Let's do that. It's kind of like other than the rockfish that people are still catching, it's one of the best fisheries this time of year.
There are other fish to catch. Let's start with the mill ponds. I like fishing in the mill ponds, especially in the wintertime, but they're actually good fish for year round. So don't discount that. If you go over to, I fish primarily Smithville, Unicorn, Ureville, Tuckahoe, and then there's that's Johnson's Pond as well. Some of the ponds have big bass in them. If you're a bass fisherman, the guys on the Eastern Shore, they're keeping this a secret, I think. But you go over there. Think of these mill ponds as a sheet pan. They're not like a sheet pan.
Okay.
And they're 4 foot probably to 11 foot deep. Average depth is about 6 to 8 feet throughout. So if you're on the shoreline fishing, it's going to kind of drop off and then stay the same depth all the way across the other side. So if you're fishing them, you can do the traditional working along the shoreline, casting along laydowns, weed beds, casting along lily pads and things like that. But don't think that you can't just cast into the middle of the lake and start bringing a bait across it and not get a bite. These fish, they travel, all over the lake. They'll try to find a depth difference sometimes. The temperature gets colder, and they'll look for anything that's even 3 to 4 inches deeper where an old channel was. You have to keep in mind that the mill ponds were developed for actual mills, textile mills, grits mills, and things like that from the I would say 18th century, 19th century, maybe even as late as early as the 16th century. Anyway, and most of them are state managed ponds, and most of them you can fish kayaks. Some of them you can put a boat in them. Some you can put a boat with a motor on it, low horsepower motors on them. But
some of those ponds won't. You can't do anything gas powered, right?
Yeah, some is just strictly electric motor on them. It depends. You research first. Check Fish Talk magazine. Fish Talk always has they have a section in there about the mill ponds, and then you go to the DNR website, look up the mill ponds there as well before you go. But I was fishing. Let me think. I was fishing unicorn recently for pickerel. Took a cast and snakehead come out on me. So if you go over to think about the mill ponds, they have fish ladders on them. If the fish ladders on them, they've got snakehead in them now. Tuckahoe will, so will unicorn. Can't think of any other fish ladders on them. They won't great numbers now because they're just moving up, but these fish will propagate up. But I got off subject there. Primarily, they are good for largemouth bass all summer long. Some of them have good pickerel fishing in them. They have good pickerel fishing in them, and then yellow perch in them as well, and crappie, good crappie fishing in them too. So keep that in mind. If you're looking for something different, something outside the salt water, outside the river systems, like if you go up to Severn or go to Magathie or the Potomac River or Patuxent River, you want to do something, go the middle of the week. I usually don't go on Mondays because I try avoiding certain areas that get pressure fishing on the weekends. So I'll skip because the fish are kind of antsy. So I'll fish, Tuesday on. Pick a day in the middle of the week, drag a kayak out or a small boat out, get on one of these mill ponds, and what you find is you're the only person on the lake.
Yeah. I talked to John Vale a little bit over the summer, and he said that the pickerel fishery of the Severn really picked up a lot this year. Did you ever fish in that area?
Yeah, I fished the Severn this year, and I fished Magathie as well. But I'm in the tournament, which, like I said, the CCA tournament, which is going on. Right. And the big fish right now, I'm in the 5th place, and I've caught 4 citation fish, and I'm in 5th place. So if you're talking to Magathie, you're talking about the Severn, there may be here or there a 25-inch fish, but we're looking for 25 and a half, 25 3/4 up from there.
That's a big one, right? Yeah.
Yep. The state, you have to think of the 24-inch fish for a citation fish.
Mm-hmm. What's the biggest one you got this year?
26.
26. And for your life, what's the biggest one you ever got?
Maybe 26 and a half, something like that.
Okay. So
I plan on doing. I think I believe that the Delaware River or Delaware mill ponds may have some bigger fish in it. I know some friends have caught some bigger ones over there last year. So I'll pick up a Delaware fishing license and I'll go over there right across from Smithville, Delaware lines right there. There's a couple ponds there. They're going to try those out. I know there's some big fish up at Loch Raven, but I can't put a boat in there this time of year. You have to only do shoreline fishing. But back to the Severn and the Magathie, fishing them, I'm catching fish over there on a 1/4 ounce or 1/2 ounce jig there with a 4-inch paddle tail on them, maybe like a blue with a little pink on it. Casting, you can cast underneath the docks and things like that. But what I found is the best way to do it on those, make sure the tide is up or just coming out. You don't want to be on a low tide. If you're on a low tide, you got to find those fish in the channels feeding in. But if the tide's up, the water's up, these fish move up and feed. So what I'll do is I'll do a fan cast. I'll just go between the folks' docks. You'll have a couple docks and just fan cast through there, then move on to the next one, fan cast through there. Let the bait drop to the bottom, lift it up about 4 inches off, and start retrieving it. But don't do a steady retrieve with it. Do a slow, because the water temperatures, do a really slow retrieve. And then every once in a while, every few seconds, twitch the tip of the rod. So the bait is going through the water, like this, instead of going through. And that.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Guys, tonight the prize is going to be a hand-picked selection. It's a little tackle tray of a hand-picked selection of pickerel lures that Eric has picked out. We're going to do it differently than last week. Instead of picking someone at random, it will go to the best question of the night. So I have a couple of more questions for Eric, but go ahead and have those get those questions rolling in, and we'll address those as we get them.
Okay, and I was going to go back to when you're fishing, you can also use a stick bait and do the same thing, cast out. Let it sink. You don't want it with the floats. Let it sink a little bit and bring it in, twitch it. You'll catch a lot that way too. But keep in mind that the state record for a tributary tidewater pickerel is smaller than the state record, freshwater pickerel, still pond pickerel. They're small fish. They compete more. I think the populations in all the tributaries right now, it has to do with last year with the rains, the fresh water that we've had. A lot of grasses growing and things like that. The winter last year wasn't so cold, so things were better for these fish. Propagated, the fish are big. So you're catching a lot of fish, probably 16 to 19 inches in that length. The bigger fish are from earlier spawns. But then we can talk about I was talking about the mill ponds. The mill ponds, like I said, are like a sheep pan shape. So what I like to do there, believe it or not, is minnows are always good under bobber on a shad dart, or what I prefer is just a lead jig, not painted or anything, just plain lead. Put a big bull minnow on it, put it under a bobber, 18 inches maybe, cast it out. I put 2 of them on and just let the wind just drift me across the pond real slow, and those bobbers would start dropping down. I've actually had it where I'll have one bobber go down, I set the hook, the other one goes down. I'm sitting there fighting it. I'm in my pedal kayak, keeping tension on one rod while I'm bringing the fish in.
Slinging bait, man. Bait slinger.
Put my rod down, grab the other one, bring it in. Got 2 fish in the net, so that's cool.
Yeah. So from what I've heard, the minnows are like particularly effective when the water gets like really cold. Not what I've heard. I went fishing with Zach Ditmars last year.
Yeah.
I forget which pond it was over there, but he out caught me 4-1, and I was throwing a little X-Wrap and just like popping it like a little suspended diver.
Yeah, you're probably fast.
What's that?
You're probably retrieving too fast.
Oh no! I was jerk, letting it sit for a good 5 or 6 seconds, pop. I was really retrieving it slowly, but he said he was using lures as well, but he was catching me 4-1 on live minnows.
Yeah, minnows. Like any fish, when the temperature starts dropping, their metabolism drops, and the minnow's just moving with the wind, and the fish will come up behind it and grab it. Keep in mind with Esoc, with grass pickerel, chain pickerel, pike, and muskie, they'll come on and they'll come and grab a bait by the side, and then they'll take a second to turn that bait around. What you have to do is, once you get the bite, like if you're jigging or something like that, you feel the tension. Sometimes they'll come behind you, you feel the weight. Sometimes it'll slam it. You need to set the hook right away. Don't wait, because they're going to let that bait go to turn that bait in their mouth. And if you do that, you're going to lose it.
So it's almost like so you're saying you do want to wait, give it a second.
I want to wait.
So it's like the opposite of a snakehead, right?
You get a hit, you take it.
Got it. Good stuff.
My favorite methods this year was things seem to be cyclical. Things seem to change sometimes. This year, I found that the easiest way for me to catch a pickerel is a really slow troll. But for example, I have 2 rods. I put one rod in a rod holder, with the same bait and just let it go for behind about 50 feet. This hand here, I'm holding the bait, twitching it. I'll catch fish on the rod I'm holding that I'm twitching because I can feel getting that fish to respond. They're coming out low. Like I said, in the mill ponds, they're sitting down in the grass probably, or they may be patrolling. But you bring your bait along and they'll come along and hit it. The other bait is just swimming and they'll come up behind it. And if they're not interested, they'll just turn away. So if you keep that bait moving, twitching it once in a while, and if you feel them hit it, I've actually feel them come up and grab it. I'll miss it and then do it again. They'll come back up and grab it again, and I'll hook them and catch them that way.
Cool. So you sort of already addressed this, but I've known you for a few years now, and I know that this time of year you're sending me pictures of pickerel primarily. So the question is, like, when are you catching pickerel? You said it's a year-round thing, but as an angler, when are you primarily targeting these fish?
In the fall, starting in the fall. But I catch them last year. I caught, I think, 150, 160 pickerel. But majority of those were because I was in the tournament last year and I was targeting them because they got the tournament going and fish them. But you can catch them year round. They don't like really hot water. They like cooler water, so they'll go where the temperature's cooler. If you're fishing in an impoundment that has a creek coming in it, they'll be bunched up against there trying to do that. But like any fish, they have to feed year round. But because the metabolism slows down, they're feeding less. But they like this time of year when it gets cool, from I would say mid-November to now. They're kind of really very active. It's going to start getting cooler in the nights, and some of these we've already seen skim ice on some of these places and some of the tributary creeks. So the temperature starts dropping. Probably the second week of February, I might start dragging minnows over and start fishing minnows for them. Yeah. But year round, if I'm fishing over at St. Mary's Lake, which is a third type of fishery that they'll be in, the fish will be deep. You use a depth finder, find underwater structure, drop a spoon in the ground, jig it up. Another way you can use is they like a big red plastic worm, Texas rig. Or use like a orange bait worm, 6-inch worm, Carolina style, and just let that sit on the bottom, the weight sit on the bottom, bring it through, and they'll eat that too. They'll hang around old grass. They like lay downs because they're ambush fish, and look for old lily pads, fields, and things like that. You're trying to find them.
Cool. First question from the audience comes from David Hall. Eric, can you see that question?
Can you catch picks in Patuxent River? Yes. Wason's Corner. Go up there, go up to and fish in the tribs and go up there, or go up to the next stop off of what's that called up there? There's as part of the Patuxent water management area. It's off of Sands Road. Can't remember what the name of it is. Anyway, you can put it in Wasons, go on up, just paddle up, and use the same type of techniques, casting a paddle tail or use it. I like to use a spoon sometimes too, like a Daredevil spoon, yellow with 5 diamonds on it, mid-size. You catch them that way too. But
5 diamonds, not 4 or 3. It's got to have 5, right? Yeah, because the picks are going to be like, that's missing a diamond.
Well, that's a brand name.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. Yeah,
no worries.
Noob.
Next question.
All right. Yeah. So the next one's from Jeffrey, but you already answered that one. It's funny. It must have been right when you were saying it because it was talking about missing pickerel when you're drifting a minnow, and you nailed that question. Here we go. Next one.
Also, you may want to look at the bobber type you use. I know Lenny Rudo likes to use a
long. I'll throw that one up then. Hang on. Go ahead.
Lenny Rudo, elongated bobbers that actually pull down slower for them. I use a big round heavy bobber, not real big, just a bigger bobber. If you see it going, you need to set it with the type that Lenny uses. It doesn't cause much restriction, and the fish will pull it, and you get a little bit more time before you can set the hook.
Nice. So it provides a little less resistance, right?
Yeah, less resistance, and they'll pull it and they'll run with it.
Got it. Next one from Michael. Use any glide baits or big swim baits to try to get those fish that are over 25 inches?
Not unless I'm fishing for muskie.
Yeah.
They'll eat the same thing though. You can use the glide bait. You'll limit the size of fish you catch, of course, if the bigger the bait you use, because the fish are going to be eating. And you'd be surprised at what size they'll eat. They'll take something. Sometimes I'll use rather than a glide bait, I'll use like a rattle trap, lipless as well.
Mhm.
When the water's dirty, it makes a lot of noise. They'll go through there, and they'll take that too. This time of year now, when you start getting into February, when the water temperatures start dropping, it's harder to catch them. A glide bait will work. I've caught them on top water as well, and I've also fly cast on them. I catch them on flies like a streamer, white streamer.
Yeah, my best lure for them so far, like I said, has been a little 3-inch Glass Ghost X-Wrap. Just really slowly worked, but
Yeah.
I'm not the professional.
You can
Nicholas asked,
use a small glide bait and do the same thing. Just treat it as if you're using a jerk bait. Bring
exactly.
let set, then it'll start. The glide bait though likes to sit there and start falling down like this, and that will trigger him too to come up and grab it.
Yeah, I've also wondered, like just based on how a pickerel acts, like something like a trout trick or a mirror lure, like anything that's suspended, I would imagine that would be a good lure for a pick. What do you think?
They would eat it probably, but
Yeah.
be a bait around 4 inches. You can use bigger bait, but these fish are actively feeding right now. They're really fat. They're catching or they're eating bluegill, minnows, and they're probably eating yellow perch and crappie. And they're going to take some bigger fish, like the gentleman was asking about the glide baits. So that would work. It's just you're going to catch fewer fish.
Got it. Question from Nicholas. He asked, are there picks in the South River?
I don't know, but I would assume that the tributaries that are feeding into the South River will. Like when I'm saying I'm fishing the Magathie and I'm fishing the Magathie and I'm fishing the Severn, I'm fishing the little tribs that are coming into it.
Got it. So you think you got to get up on the south, away from the salt a bit?
Yeah, you do. You have to go up. You have to get away from it.
So on something like the Severn, when do you see the water start, getting fresh enough to where you might find some pickerel?
50 bridge maybe.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
Got it.
Is it 50 bridge? Let me try to think here. There's a public launch there that's for residents of Annapolis. You can put it in there. I forget what the name of the creek is, but starting there, you can fish on it that way. I would stay away from the mouth of the creeks. I would get the rivers. I'd go up.
Well, I'm gonna ask the question of the night and win my own award, my own prize. The CCA tournament. You mentioned that before, and that's still open to sign up. I've been wanting to sign up for that for the last couple of years, and I never do it. Can you tell us a little bit more about the CCA tournament? I know that you've done it for several years now. About CCA, about the tournament, and how to get involved.
Yeah. You can go to CCA Maryland website. You can see it there. The tournament. iAngler is the app that they use for that. So go to iAngler and download the app if you don't already have it, and you can pay for it there. I believe it's $50 for membership, $75 for non-members. But if you're a non-member, you become a member, and then, like I said, tournament goes through February 28th. It runs from December 1 through February 28th, and you can sign up, and then you have a ruler. They'll give you a code, and you have to have that code in the photograph you take of the fish on the ruler. Do the pinch tail, not the fork of the tail measurement. Submit it. You don't have to submit it while you're out fishing. You can submit it at a later time or something like that. But I mean, it's fun. It works.
What is that membership fee going towards with the CCA?
It goes for their legislative and conservation efforts to save, rockfish, anything that they're concentrating on. Here in Maryland, it's going to be They do reef bills, oysters, anything that has to do with the bay and the trips feeding the bay.
Another question from Michael. He says, you ever seen pics in our creeks way up there here in Solomon? So I'm guessing he's talking, the kind of like, Michael, you're not talking about like Mill Creek and those kind of things, are you?
No, I don't see him this close to the bay. You'll see him in the Patuxent River up past Route 4, but I don't see him further down this way. Now you're
So that's Wathans, as you said before. That's about 15 minutes from my house. So yeah, if you take the Patuxent all the way up to, well, you just said it 4.
Yeah, Route 4 and north of there, you'll catch them. You'll probably catch them in Jug Bay as well. I think they are in Jug Bay.
Yeah, I've fished Jug Bay several times, and I always think, man, this is beautiful. Too bad I'm not catching fish. And like, I think I'm the only one that's ever said, because everyone else that I talk to says they catch fish there.
Yeah. But they're in St. Mary's Lake, and there's some of the ponds, and then also, there are some trips. If you go down to Allen's Fresh, they're in Allen's Fresh. If you go down Route 6 and stop at the bridges and fish those creeks, I've caught some small ones in there as well. They're going to be small. They're not going to be big. I'm talking anywhere from 8 inches to maybe 13, 14 inches. They're not going to get that big. Now you get down.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that there might be a little bit of salt there? I mean, why are the Eastern Shore ponds holding bigger fish?
Well, the smaller fish down in the tribs I'm talking about are because there's less water.
Okay.
It's some of it's tidal. Tidal fish are going to be smaller fish. Even tidal largemouth bass will be smaller than largemouth bass that are going to be, further up in the non-tidal areas of the Potomac River, for example.
Question from Kevin Hogan. How would you stack rank in order 1 through 5? Man, he's putting it to you, Eric. The top 5 rivers, lakes in mid and southern Maryland for pickerel.
How would I rank in order 1 to 5?
Yeah.
Number 1, the number 1 pickerel fishing areas would be the mill ponds around Salisbury and closer to the Delaware line. So that would be number 1. Number 2 would be the rivers, would be the Severn, the Magathie, around Annapolis, all those rivers and the tribs up there, up further into the rivers would probably rate number 2. Number 3, you would start getting into the rivers like the Patuxent River up north, and even I would say St. Mary's Lake. Now I've caught pickerel up to 26 inches or more in St. Mary's, but it's a totally different animal there, and they've got a lot more water, and you need a depth finder. You need to target them slightly differently.
Yeah, when you brought up and did you get to 5? did you do all 5?
Well, you did. Generally, as you want specifically names, I'd say if you're on the Eastern Shore mill ponds, go to Johnson's. There's one over there in Salisbury as well, and Smithville. Then I would go Tuckahoe. I would do Unicorn, and then I would do St. Mary's Lake. I would do private ponds in southern Maryland that's holding them. They got some big fish in them because nobody else fishes them. They grow year round. And then I would do the Patuxent River.
Yeah, and I mean a lot of those that you named. I mean that's golden information because I've fished several of those, and it gets to the point where the pond isn't so large where it's almost like you're giving away the spot, because if you have a day, you're going to fish every spot in that pond. I mean, Unicorn's pretty big, but a lot of those aren't that big.
No, they're not that big. And then, but even like Unicorn, they're going to be places where you probably won't fish it because the water gets really thin, 1.5 to 2 feet or something like that. But they're good ponds. You can catch pickerel year round there. Those fish are year round fish. And if you're just wanting to get away, do some pickerel fishing, go to the mill ponds.
Question from Phil Green. In a new body of water, how long do you try fishing a certain pattern for, I guess he's talking pickerel, before trying another method?
What I always do for me, it doesn't matter if I'm fishing largemouth bass, rockfish, let's say even white perch and things like that. I always try a jig. Fish will always eat minnows. So I'm trying, let's say I'm shooting for yellow perch or white perch or crappie. I must fish a small jig, and then I'll try various colors. For pickerel, or even pike, if I'm fishing for them, I'll start casting. I'll do fan casting, or I'll troll. Try 2 or 3 different methods. If that doesn't happen within, you got to be careful because these fish come on and then they go off. So you may be catching boom, 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 or you may not be catching at all. So I'll probably fish a bait maybe for an hour and a half before I decide to switch up. But
Okay.
saying that also is, it made me think, the mill ponds or even some of the lakes here, I like to fish them when there's cloud cover. I like to fish them when there's wind, light wind, not heavy wind. I don't fish anything that's over 13 miles an hour in a kayak. With a boat I will, but not with a kayak. Anyway, I like
Even the mill ponds over there. I mean, some of those things get pretty protected, don't they?
They do, but they still get a lot of wind, push you around. It gets uncomfortable. You have to fight
Yeah.
it. And in the
Yeah.
winter, I don't want to go over and drown, die, man. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, because those mill ponds get quiet. I mean,
Yeah, they do. But the reason I like the clouds and the wave action is because they break up the sun. The ponds are shallow enough where the fish can't get away, so they'll go down in the grasses and get away from the bright light. Even in a partly cloudy day, if you have a flat lake like glass, it'll create a problem. If you got a little bit of break to it, it breaks up the light for them, and they'll come up and they'll start searching and start looking for fish.
if you're a largemouth, like a largemouth bass fisherman or a striped bass fisherman on the bay, and you've never really gotten into pickerel fishing before, what would you say the learning curve is like? Is that something that is difficult, or is something
No. I have a big misconception about. I'm a freshwater fisherman by growing up. My dad was in the service. I fished all over the place, in different states, in Germany and places like that. And what I found is when I came to Maryland, not everybody, but majority of people are rockfish fishermen. They're looking out at the bay, looking at salt water and things like that. But they're still looking for structure. They're looking for rocks. They're looking for drop-offs. They're looking for points. Use that same concept in your mind when you go to freshwater. So if you go to a small impoundment and it's got a point, those fish are still going to be on structure because they want to eat. And what they want to eat are minnows or other crustaceans or something like that. But think about wind blowing across the point. That wind's blowing across and dragging plankton across there. And what's eating that? The minnows are eating that. So they're chasing their food source. And now what you're looking for, you look at game fish, which are by nature very lazy fish. They will sit on a point and they'll just sit there and wait for the food to come to them. Now you get some that will travel around and look for food as well. And the mill ponds too, you get a lot of that. But it's the same concept. They're different than migratory fish like you see in the bay on that point because they're not moving around in a big school of fish. They're sitting isolated. They wait for fish to come to them. So if you're fishing across the point, throw to the leeward side, bring your bait to you where the wind's blowing in your face, and then jerk it up. Those fish will come up and eat your bait that way. You don't want to go the other way because now you're bringing it past the fish, and the fish has got to chase it down. So they eat that direction there. If you got to lay down, you can cast next to that, bring your bait through there, and they'll come out from underneath it and grab it. Because if they're on lay downs, it's probably a sunny day and very little wind, and they're hiding from the sun.
And you mentioned colors before. Is there a specific color that that you think pickerel don't like, or something that is just seems to work more than anything else?
In the rivers right now, I think they're eating white basically. On the mill ponds, I'm catching them on anything from a lighter green to a gray. Think about matching the hatch as well. If you're the minnows in there, or if they're eating shad or something, or if they're eating primarily pickerel, not pickerel, but yellow perch, match something that they'll recognize and eat that way. But keep in mind too that if I'm using let's say I'm using a light blue with a little bit of pink on it in 4 foot of water, 6 foot of water, I'm catching fish. Now I take that same bait and go over to St. Mary's Lake, and now I'm fishing at 10 feet to 20 feet. Think about the sunlight coming through. The sunlight is diffused going down through there, so that bait changes color. And it won't be the same color you're catching them on. So you may have to change the bait color up to get something that they'll recognize and eat at that depth.
Yeah, you mentioned that at St. Mary's, you mentioned depth, and I know depth means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. You know, so if you're uh, a bay fisherman, right, deep is 50 feet plus, right, or at least over 30. When you're for something like St. Mary's Lake, when you're saying you need your fish finder, you know, your graph, what are you saying is deep?
Well, that lake, deepest section of it is, I think, maybe 24 feet. I can catch largemouth bass in the summertime and the wintertime. I can catch them along the shoreline, around grasses, around lily pads, around trees and stuff. In the wintertime, I'll take my depth finder out, find the channel, the old channel bed where it drops off. I'll cast out let's say a shaky head jig with a worm on it, and let it sit on the bottom in 20 foot of water, and let the wind push me across and let it drop off the drop off, and then come back on the drop off on the other side, or it'll, jump.
So not reeling at all, just letting the
Let
drift of your kayak do the work.
fish are just sitting down there and it's just moving really slow, and they'll come up and grab it. But once you feel it, you got to take it because they're going slow to eat it. They're not going to go boom, boom, boom and take it real quick. You don't want to get. So
Sorry, I missed that. What was that?
you don't want them. You don't want to go. You don't want to wait for them to eat it all the way. You want to set pretty quick.
Got it.
Now, also, it all depends. Like in a lake that has riprap on it, you get 2 days of sunny, warm weather. That water temperature rises up from the heat of the rocks, and that'll draw fish up inside there too. Well, it actually draws the bait up, which draws the fish up to eat that bait.
Michael's really trying to up his chances of winning this. So he asked, which I can't believe it took, you know, what are we, a minute 47? This is like the last question we have time for. And I can't believe it took this long for this question to come up, because this is the one that, you know, that I thought of first when pickerel fishing, but it's, do you use a bigger size leader because of pickerel's teeth?
Yeah, I do actually. I'm sorry, I should have answered that earlier on. I use
Nobody asked.
I use 17 and 20 pound leader. I use all my rods carry 30-pound braid on them, regardless. And I'll use leader. You guys strip the leader off about 6 foot. I just do 2 arm lengths, and then I use a unit knot or Albright knot or something tied on there. And then usually a unit knot to get through the guides. But then that way I can just use the leader up during the day. Because if you catch a pickerel and you get any sort of abrasion from their teeth on it, you want to go ahead and change your bait after you caught that fish. But to be safe, 20-pound test would be, if you're looking for a big pickerel, 20-pound test is the least I would use on that.
And you don't find that like the thickness of the leader causes like the pickerel to see the line or anything like that?
Not leader side. They're for example, I've caught pickerel that have had baits in their mouth that you would have caught them on earlier. That let's say somebody's fishing there and they'll eat a bait and bite them off. They can catch that same fish 30 minutes, an hour later with that same bait in its mouth. They're
not. So last question I have for you tonight, Eric. You know, I would imagine you've probably got a pretty busy schedule of fishing planned for this year. You talk about setting goals. You got anything that you're really interested in accomplishing in the next year?
I don't know. I'm trying to get see how many citation fish I can get. I've already got 4 this year, but they're all the same species. They're pickerel. Last year, I think I caught 32 species. The year before, I caught 33 species. So I'm looking for species, trying to go up on that. I've caught pike, pickerel, muskie this year, smallmouth bass, largemouth bass, a ton of saltwater fish. So I'm looking for something a little bit different. I think I'm going to start grabbing my 5 to 9 weight fly rods and start targeting some of the bigger fish. And I'll keep maybe one on the boat when I'm fishing with guys for stripers and start casting on them with a rod like that. I might try. Well, I'm going to go try up in the Potomac. I'm going to try for a couple more muskie this year. I might fly cast on some carp, big carp. I think that'd be fun to do. Clear water.
Yeah, I've got a guy coming on the show later on in the season, towards the end, Tommy Robinson, that is a huge carp fisherman, and if any of you guys are older and you remember that movie, The Toxic Avenger, I don't know if anyone remembers that, but there's a monster in there that I think looks exactly like a carp, and that it's just turned me off of carp fishing, but I'm gonna try it at some point.
I grew up in carp are you can buy them at the grocery store here in the States. That's why carp are here, because Europeans early on brought them with them and stocked, in the 1700s and things like that. Carp aren't indigenous to the U.S. at all. They've been all imported. So those fish are they're naturalized now. They're not native, but you can catch them. I was actually fishing with a rattle trap casting on them one day and caught some that way.
Yeah. So if any of you guys have ever been to my house, I live like on a little tiny inlet called Broadwater Creek off the Chesapeake Bay. And, every few springs, they'll come in like crazy and spawn back up in the back of the creek. And I've wanted to take my bow out and take a shot at them every now and then.
Yeah, but what are you going to do if you kill them? Catch and release them, man.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's why I've never done it, because what am I going to do, right?
Naked on the Eastern Shore.
Yeah, right. Let's not even get into that.
Oh, that's
on my person, if we're talking about bucket list for the year, I want to get out there. And Eric, you're welcome to join me. I want to get out there and get on a cobia this year. Did you get one this last year?
I got 3 of them.
Oh my God. I seriously have a love-hate relationship with you, bro. But so we're doing it a little bit different.
I lost
What's that?
Well over 50 inches. And then I lost another one because I don't own a big boat, don't own rods for these fish. And I was fishing with a couple guys, and their line was dry rotted. And man, talk about being upset.
You told me this story, and actually, when you told me the story, you told me the person's name. And you're a gentleman. You're a gentleman for not bringing up the name.
What I'm saying is, if you have rods on your boat, any rods, don't leave them in the sun, man. Change your line regularly, and don't leave your rods in the sun.
Yep. Well, it's you should have brought your own gear, right?
I guess.
Yeah. Well, Eric, do you have? Can you see all the questions on your screen?
No, I don't see them on there.
Ooh, you don't see them on there. How good is your memory? Because I was going to put it on you to choose the question of the night.
Question of the night would be the 5 locations.
I agree. I'm probably going to catch hell for this, because that's my good friend Kevin Hogan, and people are going to say collusion.
Well, I didn't know.
I think I'm cheating, but I thought he had the best question as well. So, Kevin, I'm going to put together that tackle tray that Eric sent me, and get that out to you. Actually, you and I are meeting to talk about stuff in the next week, so I can just get it to you then. But Eric, thanks so much, man. You're always a pleasure to talk to, and a beacon of knowledge. So, thanks so much for coming.
You're welcome. If anybody wants to reach out to me, I have an Instagram page, EricP132, and if you want to get with, get my email out to them if they ask you. Okay.
Will do. And guys, check out. This is Eric's artwork, the striped bass behind me. And if you go to the promo for this show tonight, you'll see there's a link for Eric's artwork, or at least the name of his company that you can follow. He makes a lot of great stuff.
Okay.
What's that, Eric?
It's Apple Green Arts on Etsy.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff, man. Really talented guy, fantastic fisherman. Eric, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it.
Everybody, have a great night. We'll see you next Wednesday. We're going to bring on David and Kelly Gastel from Crazy Horse Fishing Rods, and I'm going to post a video about that. I did a tour of their fishing rod studio just a few days ago. So as a prequel to that, I'm going to launch a video on YouTube of that in a few days. And then next Wednesday, we'll have them on the show. So really looking forward to it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Awesome questions, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Just like the man, if you wanna do right all day, woman, you gotta be a do right all